Hey Econ 1B students, today in this video I want to go over a new participation activity for the week looking at the factors of production. So this should be posted in your Canvas under factors of production, and it just is a process of walking through calculating the marginal product of labor, the value marginal product of labor, and then graphing those and comparing the wage to determine the quantity of labor being demanded by a firm. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. You want to take a look at the chart given. It says, consider a company that makes coffee mugs in a competitive market, selling each unit of output for $20 and paying the market wage of $270 a day per worker. Complete the table of below by calculating the marginal product of labor and the value marginal product. So I've got it right here from the table. So you have the number of workers. As the number of workers go up, the number of coffee mugs produced goes up. So the first worker produces 20 units. The second worker, we get to a total of 39. And so right away, we can start calculating that value marginal product of labor. So the first worker is going to take us from 0 to 20. So that marginal product of labor is going to be an additional 20 units. The second worker takes us from 20 to 39. So that's an additional production. The second worker produces additional marginal output of 19 units. And then we go from 39 to 57, meaning that the next worker, the third worker, produces an additional 18 units. Then we go from the third worker to the fourth worker. The fourth worker gets us to a total of 72 units. 72 minus 57 is 15 additional units. And then the fifth worker gives us an additional productivity of, looks like 12 more units. That's that marginal product of labor, looking at how much additional output each worker gives us. To calculate the value marginal product of labor, we want to remember that the price of each coffee mug is going to be $20. And so now we just want to multiply the marginal product of labor by the price we're able to sell that output for, so that we can say how much money each additional worker makes for the firm. So the first worker produces an additional 20 units at $20 each. That's a value marginal product of labor of 20 times 20, $400. Do you see that? The second worker produces an additional 19 units. Still, the price is $20 because we're assuming perfect competition. And so the firm's going to be a price taker in all markets. And so now it's just 20 times 19 gives us $380. The third worker has a marginal product of 18 units. 18 times 20 gives us a value marginal product of labor of $360. The fourth worker produces 15 units at $20 each. That's going to be a value marginal product of labor of $300. And then the fifth worker produces 12 coffee mugs. Each one can be sold for $20. So the value of that fifth worker's productivity on the margin is going to be $240. Pretty cool, right? So far, so good. Not too complicated now that we're experts in productivity and so many other things. So the next part of the problem says to graph the firm's demand for labor and determine the profit maximizing quantity of labor the firm will hire. And so what we want to do is take this table and convert it into a graph where we can compare the value marginal product of labor curve to the wage. And remember, the value marginal product of labor curve is the demand for labor for our firm. And so we're going to have the quantity of labor down here and the price of labor, or the wage, up here. And we can see how the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth worker affects our output. And so maybe we want to go up to, say, $400 here. Let's say that's $200 here. And then that'd be $100. And that'd be $300. So the first worker's value marginal product of labor, going from our table again, is going to be $400. Graph that. The second worker's value marginal product of labor is $380, not too much lower. The third worker is 360. And then the fourth worker is 300. So that's going to be right about here. All right, it's kind of hard to scale it. And then the fifth worker is going to be 240. So that's going to be right about here. That's about our value marginal product of labor curve. Not as clean as I would like it, but I'll clean it up a little bit here. Let's see. That's about right. So one of the big things to remember is that the labor demand curve is equal to the value marginal product of labor curve. Right? Because what the value marginal product of labor curve does when we add in the equilibrium wage is tell us how many workers a firm is going to demand given the cost of that labor. So the problem tells us that the equilibrium wage is $270. So we can go ahead and put that point in. It's going to be about here. And then we can do our marginal analysis to determine how many workers the firm will hire. And we can look at it graphically, or we can look at it in the table. And we can say, okay, well, at $270, would the firm hire the first worker? Absolutely. That first worker makes the firm $400 and only costs the firm $270. The second worker, would we hire them? Yeah, we're still making more money by hiring that worker than not. And that's why we want to calculate the value marginal product of labor, because that value marginal product of labor tells us the value of each worker. And then we can just compare the value of the worker to the firm to the cost associated with hiring them. And so we can go down and say, yes, we would hire the first worker, the second worker, the third worker. But we can see because of that diminishing marginal productivity, the value marginal product is falling. And we see the downward sloping curve. And so we get to the fourth worker and we say, okay, well, the fourth worker produces $300 worth of output and costs $270. So we would hire that worker. But would we hire the fifth worker who produces $240 worth of output? No, we wouldn't, because it's not worth it, right? We would lose money by hiring that worker. So what we'll see is this firm is going to hire up till and not past that fourth worker. The fifth worker over here would not get hired. So if we wanted to answer the question, the profit maximizing quantity of labor this firm would hire would be 4 workers, right? So far, so good. Pretty straightforward, right? It makes sense. You don't want to pay more for a worker than they're worth to you. And the next part talks about things that would shift the value marginal product of labor. So any factor that alters the value marginal product of labor will affect labor demand. So in this case, the question says, how would an increase in the price of coffee mugs change your graph? So let's say coffee mugs went from being $20 to $23. How would that affect our value marginal product of labor? So let's look and see. If we went from $20 to $23, then let me get my calculator out here. The first worker's value marginal product of labor is going to be that 20 coffee mugs times the new price of $23. So 20 times 23 is going to give us a value marginal product of labor of 460. The value marginal product labor of the second worker is going to be 19 cups times $23, or 437. And you don't have to do this exercise. I'm just doing it to make a point. 23 times the marginal product of the third worker, 18, is going to give us a value marginal product of labor of 414. And 23 times 15 gives us 345. And then the fifth worker has the lowest value or the lowest marginal product of labor. But now that product is worth more because the price of the coffee mugs that worker is producing went up. So now it's 12 times 23 instead of 12 times 20. And we get a value marginal product of labor of $276. That's just enough for the firm to now decide to hire one more worker. So if we see an increase in the price of the output, that is going to lead to an increase in the value marginal product of labor, which would shift labor demand out. So for example, in this case, if the value marginal product of labor went up high enough, we could see demand shift out to the point where, yeah, you would hire that fifth worker because now their productivity is worth more. Does that make sense? If not, let me know. If it does, awesome sauce. We're cooking with gas. So any change in the price of the output is going to affect the value marginal product of labor. Also, technology associated with this production process. So not labor replacing, but labor enhancing technology. So if technology that made it easier for the workers to make coffee mugs, that would increase their productivity. That would affect the marginal product of labor, and that would lead to a higher value marginal product of labor also. And that would shift the demand curve. Okay? Let me know what questions you have. Take a look at the participation activity, and I will see you in the Zoom and in the discussion threads on Canvas. Email me if you have any questions, and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you so much.